Today's episode of Teammate Talks, again, I'm here with the lovely Mrs. Rose, and we're here to talk about confidence, because the thing about confidence is people get confused about what confidence is, and they can have a really hard time being able to tell the difference between confidence and insecurity, because often they look a lot alike. Confidence and insecurity can look a lot alike. So we're going to talk about the differences a little bit there. First off, I want to start off with something that I've been saying a lot of lately. Confidence doesn't argue. Confidence doesn't argue, and confidence has no need of proving itself. Someone who is truly confident has absolutely no need or necessarily desire to argue about what they know or to argue against anything that you know. A confident person will say their piece and then just let you talk, because a confident person doesn't place their value in what someone else thinks of them or what someone else disagrees with them about. A confident person has their own value embedded deep inside of them, and they're not affected by it to the point of feeling like they have to correct somebody or feeling like they have to tell somebody about what they already know. Right? So
yeah. Confidence doesn't make excuses either.
Confidence doesn't make excuses. Confidence takes responsibility, and at the same time, it works towards understanding that I'm not going to be able to necessarily do something right off the bat, but the more I work at it, the more likely I am to be able to get it. And that's a big difference between confidence and arrogance, right? Confidence knows exactly what it can do. The person who's confident knows exactly what they can do. They know exactly where the line is. They know exactly where their limits are, and they are not afraid to admit those limits and say exactly where, oh, this is what I'm not good at. Y'all hear me walk around here all the time talking about, I'm not the best kicker in the school, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. Matter of fact, I'm proud to admit it, because it means I've trained people to be better than me, which is kind of the goal, right? It's kind of the point. But someone who is arrogant, on the other hand, thinks they have no limits. That's the person who thinks they can do anything and everything, right? Oh, I bet I can do that better than you, even though you've been doing it for 10 years. Oh, let me have a shot at that. The thing about arrogance, though, is when arrogance runs into something that's actually a challenge, or they try something and fail at it the first time, they'll feel even more insecure and embarrassed, and then they will begin to avoid that thing, blame the thing itself, blame the activity itself, or blame people that enjoy the activity and make fun of them, tease them, and tell other people that they're worthless or whatever else. That's what arrogance does, right? Confidence can be humble. Confidence can come in and go, well, I may not know how to do this, let me give it a shot. And then if they don't get it that first time, confidence understands that the longer they work at it and the more they enjoy it, the more likely they are to be able to get there. Confidence is born from a sense of self-worth. Arrogance looks similar on the surface, but arrogance is born from a sense of insecurity, a sense of worrying about what other people think and wanting to fit in. And then when they can't do something they think they should be able to do and they can't fit in, they become even more insecure, and they lash out at the people who enjoy that activity, the people who do that thing regularly. Guys, in martial arts, this is something we see a lot. We see a lot. People are like, oh, I can punch. I'm good at this. I could be great at this. So let me break that board. Okay. And then they fail at it 5 times. And then suddenly it's like, what you guys do is stupid. That's arrogance, right? That's straight up arrogance. And honestly, I can't get angry at arrogance. I have to laugh at it these days, because it's just ironic. It's ironic how arrogant people can't see what they're doing to themselves. Yeah. They can't see how they're coming across. They can't see how ridiculous they look. Versus a confident person who can come up and be like, look, I don't know anything about this. I just kind of want to give it a shot. Can I give it a shot? Yeah, sure.
I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm going to have a blast.
I'm going to have a blast doing it. And then if I do enjoy it and I have fun, even if I fail, well, maybe I'll keep doing it. Maybe I'll keep trying, and then I'll get there eventually, right? The thing is to be good at anything, to be even good at anything, you have to be willing to be a fool at first. Like, you have to be willing to be embarrassed. Embarrassment is the cost of entry to learning a skill. It is. You got to get used to that. Like, embarrassment is the cost of entry.
I've been telling my students all week that I purposefully try to look silly at least 3 times a day. Because if I'm not looking silly at least 3 times a day, then I'm not learning something new. I'm not trying my best. I'm not trying to make other people feel better. And I will sacrifice looking silly to make someone smile or make someone laugh, or to prove a point that it's okay to look silly. I've been making sure that my students really understand this week, that their confidence is directly tied to their discipline and perseverance. If they're working hard and they don't give up, they're going to know what they can accomplish, and they don't have to prove it to anyone else. So they don't have to be the best dancer in the room, or the best singer in the room, or the best martial artist in the room. as long as they feel good about what they're doing and where they're at and their progress and how they're moving forward.
Right.
Because quite honestly, I'm not the best martial artist in the room, but I have a blast while I'm doing it.
That's debatable. Depends on who's in the room.
But I'm not going to sit and I enjoy what I do and I have fun doing it. And so I'm going to confidently go forward doing it, because I know that even if I'm not the best at this one particular thing, that the more I work at it and the longer I do it, the better I will get.
Yeah, especially if you're not doing the same thing over and over again,
Yeah.
but you're changing one little thing every time you try. That's known as Kaizen, right? Constant improvement. Yeah, confidence doesn't care about embarrassment. A truly confident person does not care about being embarrassed. They don't. I mean, they may feel embarrassed at times, but they don't care about it, because a confident person can laugh at themselves. A confident person has a sense of humor about it and can laugh at themselves. Hey, Mr. Dallas. And remember, guys, as you jump on here, make sure you give us some comments, likes, shares. That stuff always helps us out. And check out the podcast at Teammate Talks. Just search Teammate Talks wherever you get your podcast. So, yeah, talking about confidence versus arrogance, there was another thing I wanted to bring up here. And this is a martial arts story. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with it, but I want to go ahead and tell the story anyway. It's a well-known story, but it has a phenomenal lesson behind it. The story goes that there was a young samurai who traveled the world looking for different teachers and different things he could learn, and studied to be a samurai for 5 or 10 years. And then one day he hears about this master samurai teacher, this master teacher that he could go to, or he wants to go to, right? So he finds where this master teacher is, and he goes over to this master teacher and introduces himself. Immediately he begins talking about all the things he's learned, all the places he's traveled, all the people he's trained under, all of these techniques and tactics. The master doesn't say much and just invites him to have a cup of tea with him. So as they're having the cup of tea, this young student goes on and on and on about all the tactics they've learned, all the ways they can fight, how good they are, how many duels they've won, this, that, and the other. And the master instructor says nothing, just starts to pour the student a cup of tea. As the cup of tea gets full, the master doesn't stop pouring it. He continues to pour it as the cup starts to overflow and spill onto the table. At this point, the young student says, hey, wait, stop, you're making a mess, you're spilling it everywhere. The cup is already full. And the master says, well, see, the thing is this cup is you, and this tea is your knowledge. It seems like you're so preoccupied with all of the things that you already know and conveying all the things that you already know that it seems the only thing you want from me is some sort of approval. It doesn't feel like you came to me to learn. Because if you wanted to learn, you would not have come with your cup overflowing full of all of this information. You would have let those things go and emptied your cup in order to start learning anew from the beginning again to see what you might have missed, right? So this is the concept of empty your cup. Bruce Lee was famous for making the quote about empty your cup. This is the story he was referencing, right? You can't learn anything new if you're if you're extremely preoccupied with what you already know. So what I talk to students about is don't say I know. Don't tell people I know. If someone starts to tell you something, tries to help you with something, and you say, oh, I already know, and they start to give you another piece of information, and you say, oh, I already know, well, maybe they had 10 things to tell you that you already knew, but by saying that, they're going to shut up. They're going to stop talking because you seem to already know, and you're going to miss out on that 11th thing that maybe you didn't know, right? And I told this story in classes the other day. After I got my first degree black belt, I lost my instructor, but I was already an instructor myself, so I needed to find new instructors. And so what I did is I searched out places, but that were a little ways away from here, but I didn't tell them that I was already a martial artist. I didn't tell them that I was already a black belt. I didn't tell them that I owned a martial arts studio or that I taught. I just asked if they would make a deal with me if I came out there to train with them every month, every 2 months or whatever, and I told them I'd like to learn their system. Then, of course, I would go and I would start as a white belt again, and I would start learning their system. And, of course, usually pretty early on, they would say something like, oh, you've obviously done some of this before. And I'd say, at that point, I might say, well, yes, I have. And they said, well, why didn't you tell me you were already ranked in another style, or you're already an instructor of this, that, and the other? And I say, well, it didn't seem to matter to our relationship. I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn. I'm not here to brag. And so I'd rather start from the beginning, because there may be some fundamental thing that you know that I don't, that maybe your teachers taught you that mine didn't, and I didn't want to miss out on that because you teach a whole different style of martial arts. And so I would go from the beginning up, to the point I was at and then beyond. And then that instructor, that first one, he went off and started doing something else with his life, and I had to find another one. As I was talking to the students about the other day, I've had 5 different instructors. Six if you count Will. I've had 5 different instructors this same way, and I went about it the same way. I didn't go to them and say, oh, here, I've already achieved this rank and this style and this, that, and the other. I knew they all taught different styles, and I knew they all had different things that they could teach me, particularly about fundamentals, because the most complicated techniques you can learn are the basic ones. They seem easy on the surface because they're easy to perform at first, but if you really want to get efficient with them and make them the best they can possibly be, it gets pretty complicated. And so I like to be able to pick up the different ways that different styles do it. And I'm never going to be able to do that if I walk into these teachers and go, oh, I already know how to punch, I already know how to kick, I already know how to do this, I already know how to do that. No, because then it just seems like I'm not humble at all. It seems like I'm not there to learn. It seems like I'm there to just show what I already know instead of learn something new. So I always went in as a white belt, and I would learn, and they were always different styles, different forms, different techniques, and I would go ahead and start as a beginner and learn their entire system. Now, normally, the more systems I learned, the faster it became for me to learn different systems, and they would usually find out that I did martial arts for a long time and move me up rather quickly. But I insisted on learning all of their material from the beginner stuff on, so that there was nothing I missed in the way that they do their style that might be better than what we were already teaching and than what we were already doing. But I'd have never been able to do that had I been arrogant. I'd have never been able to do that had I come in with a chip on my shoulder, more interested in talking about what I already know than I was in learning. But I went in interested in learning, so I went in humble and confident. I was confident about what I knew, but I was also confident that I didn't know everything. That's the thing about confidence. Confidence also understands that it does not know everything there is to know about anything. That's what we always talk about with first degree black belt, right? A lot of people think about black belt being the end of the martial arts journey. It's not. It's graduating kindergarten, right? You've gotten all your techniques. You've kind of learned them. You can mostly throw them. You might even be able to use them a little bit. But at that point on, from first degree on, is where you actually learn how to apply and use the lessons, how to dig deeper into the applications, how to use them better tactically, how to de-escalate better, how important attitude and philosophy is for life. So those things come after that point, right? So the thing we always talk about with that first degree black belt, it means you've been training just long enough to know, to realize how little you know, right? Because at the beginning, we always go, oh, look, I'm doing good, look, I'm doing good, look, I'm doing good, look what I'm learning. Okay, then they get to this point, they're like, all right, yes, I got this. And then there's another step up, and then they kind of go, oh, I knew less than I thought, but I can learn this too. And they go and go and go and go, and then they hit another plateau, and they say, oh, I've got this. I now fully understand it. I've learned most of the techniques, this, that, and the other. And then they start facing the black belt test, and they go, okay, well, I understand everything I need to know. I got this, but I'm realizing that it's going to be difficult. And the closer it gets to that test, the training intensifies, and they realize just how much more difficult that really is. And then by the time they get that belt, they come to this realization that all those times they thought they had gotten to the end or were learning everything, then they start training at first degree black belt to second degree and so on, and they start to realize that at no point in time can they know everything, but instead they've been training just long enough to realize that how little they actually know and how much more there is to actually learn, especially if you learn from multiple instructors who have multiple different experience backgrounds and things like that. I mean, me and her's background, I might have trained her, but her martial arts experience background is quite a bit different from mine, right? She had a little bit more tournament experience than I did. She had a little bit more experience in the kicking and stuff than I did, whereas I had a little bit more experience in trick kicking, and I had a little bit more experience in the jump techniques and stuff like that. And so the two of us are different people, different sizes, and we've had to learn two different ways of using the same techniques to fight and to defend ourselves and what works best for us against different sizes of opponents. So what I'm saying is, even though she trained under me, learned from me, whatever the case is, she has a different martial arts experience. Therefore, she has a different experience to teach on than I have. And that learning from as many different experience backgrounds as possible is like super important, which is what I love about how many instructors we have now, because we're talking about 20, 30, we're talking about 35 years of martial arts experience in our instructors. I mean, we're talking about 35 years of experience amongst all of us, and all of those experiences are a little bit different.
Different perspectives.
And different perspectives. Sure, it's the same techniques, but different ways to use them, different ways to set them up, different ways to apply them. Same thing with the philosophies. It's different ways to apply it, right? Mr. Muller's a teenager in college. He's just as into our teammate life skill philosophies as I am. However, he has a different take on it because life is different for him as a teenager in this day and age than it is for me as the adult of my age in this day and age, right?
Yeah. And the thing too that we all have to realize is that we are always going to be faced with challenges that we did not expect the challenge itself and the results or outcome of it.
It's better to go in not expecting anything.
Yeah.
It's much better to go in not expecting anything but to have fun. If the only thing you expect is to have fun, then you're going to be a lot better off.
Well, I couldn't help be reminded of this last week with one of our black belt candidates, their first degree candidate, and how you think you're prepared for the black belt test. Like, people tell you about it, they tell you all the requirements.
You're like, oh yeah, I can do that.
They tell you even how tired they were, or how emotionally draining it was, or whatever their experience was, because it's a little different for everybody, which is the point. And they thought they were going to die last weekend.
Yeah.
And
yeah, no, I've had this happen so many times. Like and sometimes people don't qualify, right? Mm-hmm. So like sometimes you'll have a really fit student, a really athletic student, and they just believe, oh, I got this, I don't need that extra training, I don't need this, that, and the other. I can run 2 miles in 16 minutes. It'll be super simple. But they don't realize that the test isn't just about that. It's about your attitude in the face of criticism. It's about how well you can maintain your composure when both exhausted and faced with criticism and faced with people attacking you. And then at the same time, it's not just about being able to do one feat of fitness. It's about being able to do all the feats of fitness one after the other. So we've had fit students before, like some of the most fit students we've ever had in this school fail the qualifiers simply because they burned out and underestimated how much energy the 500 kicks was going to take, and so they do this like 15-minute 2-mile run, and then they go so slow on the kicks because you have to throw the kicks hard. They end up slowing down so much at the end that they can't complete it in the amount of time that's given, and then others, who maybe aren't as fit, have learned how to pace their energy, how to pace themselves, and also how to control their emotion when it comes down to this. I talked about this at the last qualifier about how part of the black belt tests, I get a little bit mean, right? So in leadership, we're always very, very nice about how we go about our students, it's all about positive, negative, positive correction. But at the black belt test, I get real direct. And I will make each person feel like they're failing in the middle of the test. I will. But it's not because they are failing. I do it as a test of their confidence and their emotional control. Can they take that feeling of, oh, I'm getting corrected, I'm not doing as well as I thought I was, can they take that with a grain of salt and make the improvements? Or will it start getting to them, and will their performance begin to get worse and worse and worse until they give up? It's really a test of perseverance. It's a test of mental and emotional fortitude. And a lot of people don't realize just how draining that part of the test is. Me walking around going, you messed up. Because I tell them before they start, you only get one restart. You get one restart on all your forms. But then I walk around and I'll go, you need to restart that one. And then I'll walk around and go, you messed that up. I need you to go back 2 moves. And I'll come back and go, I need you to restart that one too. So at this point, they think they're failing because I told them they only get one restart. And then I forced them to restart 4, 5, 6 different times. And they're like, oh, I failed. The point is not that they're failing. The point is just to see how they handle it.
And
now, and I wouldn't do that. Like they wouldn't pass if they actually truly needed those restarts. I'm not saying that I give it to them when they need the restarts. I'll just look at one little tiny thing. I'll start picking on little tiny stuff like, hey, your big toe's out of alignment. You're going to have to restart that form. And the thing is if they were making mistakes in the forms as in leading moves out, segments, stuff like that, and had to restart twice for that is a fail. But I go around and I pick little tiny things to make them restart on if they are passing, just to see their emotional fortitude about it.
Yeah. And
I'm giving away my secrets now. I hope not too many people see this episode.
It's okay. The young man I was referencing was truly a credit to how exhausted he was in all reality. And what's funny is I was chuckling that whole time you were talking about that because, there are 2 of us who did the first pre-qualifier twice. 2 weekends in a row. And in the first one, I couldn't, like, you said something to me, you gave me a correction, and like the tone of your voice, I was just like,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
like I'm just gonna keep going. Okay, I don't. You
My tone changes.
walk away.
My tone changes during that test. My tone changes a lot because I want to see how you can deal with it. I
I
want to
was
see.
like, in my head, I'm going, a little harsh, but okay.
Yeah.
And I just kept going.
I want to see your confidence. I want to see your confidence in your own ability and emotional fortitude, and I want to see how you can maintain that confidence when the foundation is threatened, when it shakes. You know, I want to see how well you can handle being shaken. Because like I said, this all comes down to what we were talking about today. Confidence versus arrogance. Because that little being kind of picky and direct like that weeds out the arrogant.
Oh, gosh,
It weeds out the arrogant because they'll break. They'll break and get angry and start doing worse and worse. And they'll get mad and they'll yell and they'll stomp and they'll storm off and they'll quit. That's the whole point. The whole point is to weed out the arrogant and to strengthen the confident. Those who can believe in themselves and don't base their value off of my opinion of their forms, that don't base their self-worth off of whether they pass this test or not, because that's ridiculous. That's not confidence. It's not true confidence if you base your value on whether you pass a test, if you base your value on what somebody else thinks, if you base your value on guys, it's a ridiculous thing to base your value on. I mean, think about it. I heard this story the other day. I was talking about confidence. That was, if you were handed a baby, an infant, a child, and you were asked on a scale of 0 to 100 to rate the worth of that child. If you're a decent human being at all, you're going to rate that child at 100.
Sad that you have to qualify that.
Well, you're going to rate that child at 100 because you think of it as infinite potential,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That child has done nothing for the world. That child has given nothing, has participated nothing, literally just exists and demands, but we'll still say, you know, that potential is set and the other, they're worth 100 on the 0 to 100 scale. So why is it as adults and ourselves and our kids that we start making them see themselves as less than 100 on that scale when they were infant and had nothing to contribute to society, we gave them 100. But then when they're older and when they think they need to contribute to society, suddenly their value goes down? That's ridiculous. We each have a part to play. We each have our own wisdoms. We each have our own experiences. We each have a piece of the puzzle, right? It's working together and being good teammates with each other that allows us, that unity, that allows us to grow beyond each of our individual potentials and values and worths, right? It's about the worth of the community. But in order for that to happen, one has to remember that they are just as valuable now as they were as an infant at birth, when they would have been given the highest ratings of value, you know, for a human life or whatever. Yeah. We do the 0 to 100 scale. I really like that story.
Yeah, no, it really does show how contradictory we are and how hypocritical we are with our own self-worth.
We tend to be, yeah, a little bit.
Because in the same instance, we would also rate, and probably another adult standing in front of us to go, you know, what do you feel like their worth is? And we would probably say, oh, well, 100, you know, because they're not us. They're somebody else. And we say, oh, they should have potential. They should,
right.
You know.
And confidence doesn't help people to make themselves feel better. Making themselves feel better is an offshoot, right? Mm-hmm. It's a nice side effect. But confident people, real, true confident people, don't help others or help correct others in order to make themselves on a pedestal above them or anything like that. Instead, the truly confident will help others and correct others in order so that that person can learn to the extent to return the favor one day. I mean, that's the way I've always looked at teaching, right? I'm not teaching to put myself up here from my students. Not at all, right? I'm teaching from a place down here. I'm teaching to serve my students, with the goal being that if they get good enough, they can then return the favor and correct me when I need my corrections, right? Versus someone who is more arrogant will correct people or help people, one, to make themselves look better, feel better, and two, to make themselves, in the eyes of the person they're helping or correcting, up here, right? Rather than in service to them. The arrogant like to have people look up to them as better than them in some form or fashion. So when we're picking from our leadership team to start training towards paid staff, that's one of the very first things I look for is, does it seem like this person, that maybe they're great at the helping, but does it seem like they're helping because they like the accolades and the adoration of the students? Or does it seem like they're helping because and correcting because they truly want to help that person get to a point that they can surpass them and then correct them later on so that they can improve, right? I think a truly confident teacher tries to get their students to improve beyond them so that those students can become their teacher and help them grow more past that point.
Quite honestly, I need more partners in black belt class.
Yeah.
Like, we always need more partners in black belt
Yeah.
class. You can never have too many. So
Yeah. The
y'all need to
issue
get-
is when you get that one partner that gets a little egotistical, too emotional,
Yeah.
starts getting angry when things don't go their way, starts trying to railroad and run over people. It's no fun at that point, right? That's why you really want just the truly confident ones who have nothing to prove, who aren't
Yeah.
trying to put themselves on some kind of pedestal or don't have some chip on their shoulder. Again, confidence versus arrogance. A lot of times in actions, they can appear very similar or the same thing, but confidence has no need to brag or prove. Arrogance will always be trying to prove it's better than what it's in competition with. Confidence is never in competition. Confidence never competes. Arrogance is in constant competition, is always competing against other people and trying to portray themselves or put themselves up on a pedestal above other people, versus the confident who are not trying to compete in the slightest. They're just experiencing and having fun and enjoying themselves.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
So anything else to add on our confidence versus arrogance talk?
No.
Let's go back to the title, confidence doesn't argue. Confidence has no need to argue, right?
Yep.
So if you find yourself getting into arguments regularly or trying to correct people who see things different from you regularly, or trying to bamboozle somebody who sees the world differently, you might have to ask yourself, you know what, am I actually confident or am I being arrogant here? Because if you feel in your heart and in your gut a need to correct somebody or try to change somebody or yell at somebody or put somebody down, then I can tell you that you're coming from a place of arrogance. The confident come from a place of love, right? The confident can hear someone else's side of something, can convey their own side without trying to convince the other side. Like, she may think something different from me, she may say what she thinks. I'm not going to try to change her mind. I'm just going to say, oh yeah, that's cool that you think that way. I see where you're coming from. Me personally, I look at it this way. I'm not going to try to tell her she's wrong. I'm not going to try to convince her of my side, because that's confidence. Confidence doesn't care if that other person believes something different. And confidence doesn't care or think that has to change anybody's mind. If you feel like you care that much and you have to change somebody's mind and you've got to save somebody from their own thoughts or because they're being stupid or from their own ignorance, then you're coming from a place of arrogance. That's straight up arrogance. That is truly believing that you are somehow above anyone else. And that's just not what confidence really is. Confidence is not believing more of yourself than anybody else, but it's also not believing less of yourself than anybody else. The arrogant try to portray a belief of more of themselves than anybody else while actually seeing themselves as less than everybody else because of shortcomings or whatever things that they're not able to do as well as they think they should. Right? Imposter syndrome, things along those lines. So be cautious of the line you walk between confidence and arrogance. And these are a few tips, right? We went over a bunch in this video. There's quite a few tips and tools here that you can go back and listen to figure out for yourself, am I truly being confident or am I being arrogant? And here's the beautiful part. If you find that you can admit to yourself that you're showing a little bit of arrogance in certain things, or that's, admit to yourself that maybe that's a bit of a flaw, it's very easy to convert arrogance to confidence. Extremely easy, matter of fact. The only thing you need is transparency with yourself. Honesty with yourself. The only thing you need to transmute arrogance into confidence is the ability to admit to yourself and everyone around you your flaws and your mistakes and begin to work on them and not be embarrassed by them, right? That's really the key, right? So then instead of, like, if you find yourself arguing over some belief, arguing over some political thing or something with somebody because you really want to change their mind, and you listen to this video and you realize, oh, maybe I was a little bit arrogant about that, you can learn to admit that fault, that maybe I come across a little bit arrogantly, so how can I then say what I want to say and portray what I'm trying to portray without sounding arrogant? Well, that's pretty simple. Instead of attacking the person, instead of attacking their argument, let them say their piece, you say your piece. If they keep talking and try to turn it into an argument, shut up and walk away. Don't worry about what they think. Don't try to change their mind. The confident doesn't need to change anyone else's mind because they don't need that other person's approval. They don't need that other person as a follower. They simply need to believe in themselves. They have their own value imprinted in their soul, and they believe what they're worth, and so they're not going to base it, they're not going to care what anyone else's beliefs are or any of that. The truly confident have no need to argue and no need to prove themselves.
Yep.
That's it?
That's right.
That's all you got to say today? You're making me be talkative. You got anything
I'm
else to add?
making you be talkative.
Say something funny. Say something funny for the crowd. Oh, no.
I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts.
No.
Where's the diddly dee? You're supposed to say diddly dee. That's part of the song.
Oh, man. No, I got stuck on coconuts.
You said something funny. I was supposed to say something funny. You said something funny.
I got stuck on coconuts. I'm sorry. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump off here. Remember, wait, what do I always say? That's all I got. I'll say it 1,000 times. Yeah, until we see you guys again. Be the best teammates you can be, and be the best at being you.